Hi everyone who has been able to join us so far. I know that there's some more still intending to come in through the course of the afternoon. Thanks very much for joining our wee information on our Lupin Lives Day here. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Lupin. Hopefully you'll be a wee bit more familiar with it by the end of today's session, and you'll certainly be a wee bit more familiar with the reasons why some of us have opted to loop and what our clinicians are able to do to support us and help us through this interesting journey that we've all started on. Just a wee quick bit of background. This weekend, 3 years ago, I was at a Lupin event run by Input Diabetes in London. And I was just blown away by all this information. So if you're blown away by the stuff today, that's fairly normal. A year later, I went to an event in Dublin that was hosted by Thrivabetes and learned a wee bit more and met some of the folk who are on the session here today as well. So that was my first encounter with them. Within 18 months of that event, Mary Murphy had invited me for dinner in her house, and I was there until the not so wee hours of the following morning, getting started. Mark Breen, who's also here today, then met me in Sprucefield in the coffee shop. Would that have been January 2019, Mark? And we kicked off our Lupin journey together. I then subsequently deleted all my stuff. So if you can make a mistake, I will generally be the person who makes that mistake. So listen carefully to what folk are telling you today, because it will all be really, really useful. So you're going to hear the story of our geriatric looper, also known as Alastair. And you're going to hear from Mary, who's the parent of a looper. You're going to hear from Keith, who's the husband of a looper, and Rachel, who has a very special Lupin story indeed. So Alastair's going to switch off your cameras and your mics so that the only folk you'll see on your screen are any of us who are speaking here today. And if you want to put any questions as people are talking, please use the wee chat box to do that. We're taking a wee break at around 3 o'clock, I think. Yeah, around 10 to 3 o'clock. And we're going to get together at that stage and have a wee look through your questions. So we're not answering the same question 20 times in the conversation. So please do put in any questions about anything at all. And now I'm going to hand over to the lovely Alastair, who's going to put up a wee poll for us first of all. And I really hope you enjoyed today's session. All your feedback's really welcome. And as you know, none of us are doing this under any form of sponsorship. Massive disclaimer here at the start. We're not being funded by any of the pump companies, insulin companies, needle companies, anybody. We literally are doing this simply and purely because we wanted to share our stories with you. Everybody here is doing this entirely voluntarily. And you'll have seen a wee link in the email for 2 charities that we're supporting. And as we've gone through the past year, we've become more and more aware of the work that charities in other countries are doing to support people who don't have access to insulin, don't have access to test strips, don't have access to pen needles, and aren't doing as well as we're doing. And none of us have been bribed or bought into this by any of the companies at all. So that's the big disclaimer at the very start. We're all just a bunch of random wee individuals who clicked and are doing stuff together. So Alastair, can I hand over to you now to run our wee first poll, just to get an idea of who's in the room here today.
Okay, so the poll has been launched. I'm going to mute everybody to make sure everybody is muted, and then Dawn, you'll have to unmute yourself again then, so then that'll get us ready to go.
You're getting great.
Okay, at the minute we've got 40 people here, and I can see the numbers that are coming up here. And if I'd done the spell check first of all, then I would have spotted the deliberate mistake there in the first line. So there are a few people who are persons living with type 1, they are winning with 88%. most people are in the north of Ireland or the south of Ireland. Farthest away is probably Canada. Welcome, Alison, and you've got 2 friends over there, and 1 person in Australia, so that's absolutely fantastic. And whoa, we've got 2 people who were diagnosed over 60 years ago. I take it that's Liz and somebody else. That's absolutely fantastic. And on the age question, the personal one, then most people are in their 40s. We'll try and give more information then later on this afternoon. Okay, so thank you very much to everybody who's taken part of that. And I think I'm handing back to Dawn.
Hello, it's back to me again. So it's really good to see a big spread of folk with the different types of diabetes. So we're going to share the poll results now, just so you get a wee feel for who's in the room.
No, I've just hidden them. So hold on.
You've just seen them. That's okay. Oh, right, soz.
Right. So can you see the results? Yeah.
I can't.
All right. Okay. I'll put them up there.
Anyway, right. We'll do that later, Alastair. It's okay. So, first of all, I'd like to introduce Alastair Smith. Alastair is going to tell you a wee bit about his story, his lupin journey, and what his lupin life has been like over the past year. So, Alastair,
The poll has been shared actually there, Dawn. It is in front of my screen.
Okay, so let me get back to the poll and then stop sharing. Bump. Okay, is that it gone, Mary?
No, it's actually still there. Did you share it? No. Okay, yeah, it's gone.
It's gone. Okay, then. This technology is absolutely fantastic, but it is nothing in comparison to the looping technology. Are you going to ask me questions, Dawn, to make it like a...
I'm just going to ask you, Alastair, how did you get involved in lupin?
Okay, in 2019, I was helping out at a Diabetes UK Family Weekender camp in Belfast. And one of the helpers, one of the health professionals there was a doctor, pediatrician, I can't remember his name, and just generally talking about life with diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, "Are you looping?" And I looked at him, had not heard this expression before. And I said, "Sorry, I haven't a clue what you're talking about." He says, "A lot of families with children are looping at this point in time." And I said, "Where do you get information?" He says, "Well, look it up on the internet." So I did a bit, but then it sort of waned. Kieran Walsh, Dr. Kieran Walsh, I remember talking to him, and he's obviously up on everything and he knows. And then around probably January, February time last year, I somehow heard about the Rise of the Machines event that had been planned for May in Titanic Quarter in Belfast. Registered for that. It was cancelled, obviously, and then I joined the Zoom session last May that Dawn led, and that was me hooked. So basically, looping basically became my my lockdown project. There's a new language, you know, with looping, like DIA, duration of insulin, you know, absorption. You have the ratios that you have to do, and the fact you could change this all the way through, the sensitivity, and there was so much information then that came at that time. I remember early on, because Mark helped me and Dawn helped me to get set up with it, and the first meeting we had via Zoom again, suddenly Dawn went, "Oh, my bloods are low, I better go and do something." And Mark went, "Hey, mine are high." And I went, "Hold on, I thought looping was going to be the answer." So looping is not basically the answer to everything. Looping does not cure you of diabetes. So really, John, I mean, that's how I came to find out about looping. I suppose you're going to ask me next, Don, then what it's meant to me. Is that I mean, I'm just reading your mind at this point in time, Don, but I mean, I'll give
Yeah. How has it changed your life, Alastair? What has been like the biggest benefit from you started looping?
Well, I mean, looping is one of those wow moments. You know, I mean, as you see from the poll, or maybe you didn't see, we have a couple of people who have had diabetes for 60 plus years. I know Alison is here, 58, and I've had it 56 years. And probably each of us can remember times in the life, like back whenever we were diagnosed. This is the 99th anniversary of the not the discovery, but the actual isolation of the hormone for use. And then Leonard Thompson received his first dose. And really back in the 60s, whenever I got my first dose, it wasn't too dissimilar. No insulin had been worked on and had been developed and improved. But really, I mean, I got an injection once a day, and that was it. That was my diabetes control. It was like, okay, put this in you, and then away you go, and all the best for the rest of your day. But over the last 10, 15 years, there's been an amazing move and improvement in technology. I can still remember coming down to breakfast that morning and going, I don't have to inject again. You know, from having 5, 6 injections a day, suddenly I was connected to a pump, and then that did it all for me. And then getting the sensor in the arm, I mean, that was another amazing one, no finger pricks. But you see with the looping, it's one of those moments where you went, and everywhere you went, you're going, here, do you want to see my screen? Do you want to see the flat? Do you want to see how flat it is? Do you want to see how my bloods are controlled? And I mean, it was an absolutely amazing experience. And Dawn, then probably the next thing you're going to ask me, you've been very, I mean, seriously, really, seriously, I mean, your speed of that mute button is absolutely fantastic, Dawn. But I mean, you're going to ask me something like, what would I tell myself from my pre-looping days? Is that what it was?
Alastair, you can just read my mind so well. This is what looping does for you folk. Like if you think the Pfizer vaccine gives you 5G connectivity, looping does it like on a higher level altogether. WhatsApp has nothing to do with it at all. So if you could go back and speak to Alastair Smith in September 2018, when you first heard about looping, what would you say?
2019. You didn't start in 2020, Dom, but anyway, we'll move on from that because it does affect your memory as well. What would I do? You know, I come from a sciencey, engineering type background, and I could show you spreadsheets and graphs for everything. And whenever I started looping, I can show you the graphs. I can show you how my time in range has gone from about 60% up to about 85, 90%. I can show you how my HbA1cs have been coming down, and really tracking every day. I can show you the days whenever my estimated A1C was in the 30s and in the low 40s, high 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and just show the change that there has been over that time. So, but you know what? The advice that I would give my 2019 self now when looking to looping is stop chasing the stats. You know, stop beating yourself up if you are 1 point down or 1 point up. Do you know what? Just take the benefits, because looping is amazing. You know, the system is set up now, so whenever my bloods are going high above 8.5, it suddenly changes, programmed in to change, I've programmed it in to change, bring my targets down. So therefore, it gives you a wee bit more insulin to try and offset the fact you're going high. Or if they're going low, then it does the same. And during the night, you set the targets. And it's amazing. I can't remember the last hypo I had during the night. So advice to self from October 2019 is, look, just take it. Take the benefits. Stop chasing the stats, because your quality of life is improved or will improve. My time in range now is 85%. A1C is, well, it was 57 before it started. The best result I've had is 46. So, I mean, it's a tremendous improvement. but the A1C jumps up and down. So I mean, stop worrying about that. Your quality of life and the looping, under looping, is so good now. So just live, take the benefits, and don't beat yourself up over the stats.
Thanks very much, Alastair, for sharing all of that. I see there's a couple of questions coming up in the chat box, and we will answer those, as said, after we have our wee break later on. But it's been really encouraging hearing how looping for Alastair has changed things so much. And I know that it's been it's given him a massive amount of headspace that he maybe didn't have before. So we have another wee poll, I believe now. So I'm going to hand over to you tech guys in the background, if you wouldn't mind putting the wee poll up for everybody to have a look at that. And for those who have just joined us while Alastair was talking, and the poll's going up, thanks very much for coming along today. I was saying earlier, all of us are doing this free of charge, and there are 3 people on the Zoom this afternoon in particular that I'd like to give a massive shout out to. And in no particular order, that's Neil Black, Paul McMullen and Shilpa Shah, who are 3 of our consultants across Northern Ireland. So they all work in different trusts at the minute. I know some of them have worked in similar trusts in the past, but they're all here, and they're going to be giving us a wee bit more information later on what they can and can't do. So, and it's great to see how many of you are answering away already. So we have a fair split between people who are looping and people who are not looping but would like to loop. So, and just while Alastair's letting that wee poll run, I'm going to do an introduction for...
Right. I give a comment in this here then. So at the minute, about 40% of people are looping, 8 aren't, and 20% aren't, and 14% would like to. And there's about 5% say it's not for them.
And I'm assuming it's not for them because they already have pancreases that do things. So it'd be really stupid. If you've got a fully functioning pancreas, please do not start looping. It's not recommended.
Okay, I'm going to end and just share this poll very quickly, okay?
And while Alastair's just sharing the poll results there, I'm going to take 2 seconds now to introduce Mary Murphy. As I said to you earlier, Mary's the person who made me dinner and got me started on a big part of the technical side of my looping journey. Mary's type 1 herself, but she is also parent of a type 1 child who is looping. So, Mary, over to you. And your first question is, where did you first hear about looping and what piqued your interest in it?
All my kind of technology stuff post having a pump myself all came through having Johnny with type 1, and it was on the X-Strip Facebook group where it would have been mentioned, and then I joined the Loop group. I was on a Roche, but Johnny was on an Animas pump, an Animas Vibe, and I wasn't geared for open apps, and I wanted him to be more independent, and I wanted us both to have Omnipods, basically. And then I realized that we could loop with Omnipods a little bit later on. And when Animas stopped supplying pumps, that was amazing for us because it meant we could then get Omnipod, get quicker. Because I wanted to do the same for both of us. I needed to work it out myself because there was nobody else I knew myself properly that I could see and feel things that it just wasn't like. This is back in 2019. So we started looping in August 2019 with Omnipods and Libra and Meow Meows.
And what's been the biggest benefit, do you think, for Johnny as a result of you being able to set up his looping system and keep an eye on what's happening with your son whenever he's at school, or if he's away at a friend's house, or if he's at some event where you're not present?
He's just much more independent. Like it's not perfect, like Alastair's saying, that you still have to put in your boluses, you still have to carb count, but the bit in the middle, if you get slightly wrong, it comes in and helps. It helps tap you down, it helps bring you up. And as a child, like, he can guesstimate quite well, and do great, much better and much more safer than just with manual pumping. Like, for him, it gives him freedom, and for me, it takes the worry and the guilt away when I'm not there with him. Otherwise, before I went everywhere, I was his shadow. I don't have
Do
to
you
be
think Johnny's due to change schools in September, and do you think that him having access to a loop has reduced some of your fears or anxieties or concerns as a parent of a type 1 with him moving to a new school? Has it lessened some of that burden, do you think?
Hugely, absolutely hugely, because we've moved schools already. We moved in primary school to come from Glengormley to Magherafelt, and we weren't looping in Glengormley, and we started looping literally within the first, it was the beginning of the second term in here in Magherafelt, and I'm already set up for change for that. And going in the summertime, after we started looping in August, we moved it on Good Friday. We had the summertime to start looping, and then he started P6, and it was like night and day from starting in a new class in the same school. A new class in the same school was always like you were going around with no skin on. Any other parent will know that those weeks leading into the end of August, where you have your pack and you're writing everything down, and everything's changed all over the summer. The whole routine has changed, and you're trying to document that change and know that you're going to have to change everything in another week's time as they go back to school. So Loop really, really, really helped me that September 2019, and then we had lockdown.
And that's a whole other story. But if you could go back to yourself whenever Johnny was first diagnosed and give yourself one piece of advice or one key piece of information about how looping and the electronic systems and the algorithms were going to affect your life, what would you say to yourself at that point in the game?
I would say that we can always give it a try, because you can always revert back. It's not like, so I set up my time. I know that I did things uber carefully, and I set a date to go live, but I could have simulated it and understood it more in practice and just see it, but I didn't realize I could do that. It's like going on a pump. Like when you start a pump, you can go with a saline run on it. Anything with technology, we can now give a try with and see how different it makes. And when you try it and press go, and you can stop doing it and revert back. It's not like you have to set yourself up with this forever, but it's like, when you do give it a go, you see how it can help in those gaps, and the difference it makes to your sleep is enormous for parents, because when we do sleep, we sleep with guilt, and when we don't sleep, we sleep with worry, and Loop really helps with the worry. Like the CGM bit helps with the worry, and the Loop helps with the guilt, and there's less hypos during the night, and his teeth are much better. There's less worry and less guilt. So it was like, just give it a try. Don't be afraid to give the technology a try. Any technology for diabetes a try.
So would you recommend for any parents with kids who are on pens or kids who are on pumps that aren't currently loopable, that they maybe consider setting up Night Scout first, or having a look at the documents so they can become familiar with it, so that as they gain access to different technologies, they can start to patch those bits in?
Oh, 100%. That, like, any parent who knows me that's on the Zoom will know that I rabbit on about Night Scout, and until you're using it and applying it, like we have M5 stacks all over the house, like being able to see your blood sugar in real time. For me to be able to see Johnny's in real time means I can catch it quicker if I'm not looping, even, like, because looping isn't perfect, and like our iOS loop isn't as reactive as an Android, apps. And the quicker I see something like looping for me, I would maybe compare to a really good cruise control in a car. So you still, like, it will notice the car coming in front of you and it'll slow down and pick up and all, but you still have to apply your brakes and you still have to change gears with our loop. And so being able to see the blood sugar in real time with Night Scout at a very minimum without having loop helps all that immensely. Really does.
Thanks very much for sharing that, Mary. And I know that there's a lot of folk are putting wee comments there just saying how useful it is already, finding out about how it can work for kids, for teenagers. And there's some more information going up as well. So we will come back to that later. But thank you so much. That was really, really useful. And I've learned another wee bit. Every time I'm talking to you, I learn another wee bit more of how important it is. So I'm now going to ask Alastair to put up our next wee poll. So I'm going to have wee polls between each of these sessions, folks. So it means that you're not sitting at home just looking at the screen all the time and thinking, oh, I'm not involved here. So Alastair, can I hand over to you for poll number 3? And while Alastair's doing that, Keith Patterson is going to come and have a wee chat to us after this poll goes up. So Keith is married to Sarah, and Sarah is another one of our lovely local loopers who would tell you how much she has benefited from it, and she'll also quite happily share some of the struggles that her journey has involved along the way, and particularly with wild swimming, amongst other things, and alcohol and various things. Sarah's available on Instagram as Little Pink Kitchen. And if you follow her there, you'll have seen some of her stories. She's posted stuff. But Keith's going to come and tell us about how Sarah's looping journey has impacted and affected his life and what he sees as being the benefits of it for Sarah and for him too, because everybody's involved in this game.
Okay, there's the results done. Hopefully you can see that basically most people who are looping, 72% then are using the Android APS, and there's a few ones there the way through, and 2 people on commercial loops. So that's
very good. Yeah. So 72% of the folk here are using any looping system, yeah, or on Android APS. And I see Ken Barkley has just shared, there's no option for the original Open APS, and he's just moved from that to Android APS recently. So Ken, if you maybe in the wee chat box want to put in a wee update on how you found the change from Open APS to Android APS, that would be really quite helpful, I think, for folk as well. And again, I'm going to apologise because I know that an awful lot of you here have come along as a taster session and as an introduction, and we're probably using words and language and terms and you're going, this is a whole foreign language. But do bear with us, there's information coming later on down the line where we'll be able to give you a bit more information on that and show you what we're using as well, because there's some questions going in about different sensors and pumps also. So that's coming up during the interval. But I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Keith Patterson to tell us about his lovely Sarah's journey. So Keith, you had a bit of a rude introduction to Android APS looping, I believe, and it was a wee bit of a shock initially to you. Would you like to tell us a wee bit more what your first thoughts were as a computer person, what your first thoughts were?
Okay, so hello everybody, my name's Keith. I'm married to the lovely Sarah Patterson, also known as Little Pink Kitchen. Yeah, so what were my thoughts when I first heard about looping? As a software engineer, I had lots of technical concerns, because obviously stuff that's, your pumps and sensors and insulin, everything's medically rated and tested and goes through a lot of procedure before it can be used. And I sort of thought, well, hang on a minute, what about the software? And it was just a GitHub account, and so that was one of my main concerns. The reliability, there's bound to be bugs. How does that affect things? What about the algorithm? what happens when something goes wrong. So, and then also the dependence on her phone, which is, you know, is quite sort of battery dependent, and you always have to have it with you, which isn't maybe healthy for other reasons. What happens when the battery dies or it goes offline? Yep. So the reality of that is actually there was a great support from the local community, the local living community here. I was really impressed by the setup guides for Android APS. Sarah managed to work through them all herself completely, got it all sorted. And really that's just a testament to the guides that have been written and the local support here. There's a really good community of users and testers behind both APS. I believe the algorithm is separate to the app, but both have a huge amount of users, have had a lot of testing, a lot of feedback, continuous feedback. It's actually a lot of the things that the software engineering community strives for. And they don't have the burden of the regulatory stuff, which may not, so which can actually be a good thing sometimes. And when our phone dies, everything continues to work. The pump's medically rated, it's got its own settings, the Libra sensor works away, there's no problem. When the phone comes back online, it picks up where it left off. So I'm really amazed. So Sarah's been type 1 for a long time. The last, I say 3 years, we've been on a COVID extended IVF journey. And that's been really hard. Tighter pre-pregnancy blood sugar targets, you know, just more of a mental load. Sarah started off with the Libra sensors, then thankfully got them prescribed. Next was the insulin pump, which was to help with insulin resistance issues, and that really did help. So that was over a period of 6 months or so, and you can imagine there was a lot of adjustment for that. But with these two on their own, there was just more and more information, more stats, more information overload, both setting up the pump, adjusting basal rates for different times of day, and then that would change. Insulin sensitivity was being worked out reasonably often. So actually, after the loop, this has given a lot of headspace back. She's able to enjoy life without the worry of diabetes stopping things, which in turn affects my life too. I can sleep much better at night, and I've built up a good amount of confidence in the loop. I'm amazed that she can now go to the morns on her own with other people, and isn't consuming all the Skittles in the world to get up the hills. It's quite amazing, really. And actually it makes a lot easier to manage the insulin resistance over time, which does seem to change. And I guess the last question, Donald, kindly prompted me, if you could go back and share one thing with your pre-looping life self. Well, I mean, there's only one answer there, really, is just get looping. And make sure you have a compatible pump would be a big thing. Meow Meow caused a few issues because the first Libras didn't have Bluetooth, but that has thankfully been sorted here. So I hope others can move off that too. That's kind of everything I had to say. Hopefully that was, you could hear that okay, and fire any questions into the chat for later.
Thanks very much, Keith. That's amazing, because I know that the two of you have worked really closely on this as well, and I can see even in Sarah's lovely photographs of you now that you're just not as stressed looking.
Yeah.
Maybe the hair will grow back now that Sarah's been looping for 6 months, almost 6 months.
Nearly 20 years.
You know, miracles happen. So we're going to have Rachel coming in next. So before Rachel comes to speak to us, Alastair has another wee poll for you all, just based on some of the questions, answers that you've given already. So we'll just give Rachel a wee minute to get herself gathered together, have plenty of coffee, and Alastair, over to you.
Okay, I'm just before I launch this, instead of just saying what do you think the benefits are, because I reckon you could tick all the boxes. What do you think are the three main benefits of lupin? So it's a multi-choice one. Three main benefits. Okay, I mean that's playing out fairly much. So basically, time and range then is coming out as number one. Reduction in hypos, yep, it's second, just from HbA1c. So you can have a look at the results there.
I think, as you're all aware, anybody who's using any of the current wearable glucose sensors, the time and range thing is what a lot of our clinicians are really focusing on to help us to reduce any risks to our own long-term health and short-term health as well. So it's great seeing that that has actually been the most popular answer coming up in the poll there today. And lower HbA1c is third down on the list. So again, better in, better quality of life, I think, wins over the numbers every time. At the end of the day, they are just numbers. But I'd now like to introduce you all to the very lovely Rachel. Rachel and I met 3 or 4 years ago. We both work as midwives in Southern Trust, and Rachel's first day in the hospital, she was partnered with me because, sure, you just keep those type 1 folk together because they can then go and sort themselves out, and if they have hypos, somebody in the room knows what to do about it. So Rachel's going to share her story with you, and I haven't given Rachel any questions to prep her. This is all very much Rachel's lupin journey, her lived lupin journey, and it's really worth hearing. So over to you, my lovely.
Hi everybody, I'm Rachel. I apologise in advance because we have discovered that I can't really talk about this without crying, so just to let you all be pre-warned. So I first was introduced to lupin whenever I was in work with Dawn one day, and we sat down to lunch and we were both, working out carbs and everything, and I got everything out and was testing and doing all the rest, and Dawn literally whipped out this phone, typed a couple of buttons, put it back in her pocket, and that was it. And I was like, what's that? So Dawn explained about the loop and everything, and I was like, no, not happening. That's far too much. Don't understand it. Don't know what you're talking about. Not my sort of thing. And she then sent a message and was like, this is what you do. Just start here. Buy this. This is the meow meow. She was like, buy this and we'll stick it on your Libra and work from there. So that's what I did. And she got me in the WhatsApp group, and then gradually just started working through everything, and eventually then ended up set up lupin. And for me, it has completely changed so many things, and I didn't even realize half of them until we started talking about this. So before lupin, I very much didn't really have control. On the outside, everything was great, and I was, coping very well, and everything was lovely. And then really inside, it wasn't good. It was very mentally draining, and it just, everything just really got on top of me all the time, and I just always it was easier to pretend it wasn't happening and it wasn't there. So about 6 months before I started lupin, I had actually been referred by my consultant for the psychologist through the hospital, just to sort of work through how I was feeling. And then in that COVID came, and so everything was delayed, and in the meantime I started lupin. So really for me then, in the November. I started looping in the August, and come the November, I eventually got a call from the psychologist and was chatting with him, and he sort of said, you know, how are things? And I was like, well, everything's changed. I was now looping, my time and range was so much better, and my life coping with everything was just so much better. And it wasn't really until I was speaking to him that I sort of realized this has changed my life. So come the end of the phone call, he said he didn't need to see me anymore. He felt that I wasn't really in a position where I needed any sort of counselling, because the changes that looping had made had changed enough for me that counselling wasn't really going to do anything. So I suppose if you're asking me the benefits, I would probably say, you know, that overbearing weight of diabetes, like controlling my life, has gone. I like sleep, everything, you know, waking up feeling, you don't feel groggy in the mornings, you're not irritable, moods in general. I now talk about my diabetes, my family. I'm so much more open with everybody because, you know, things are better and I feel better able to talk about it. Sorry, I'm starting to go. But yeah, the mental load really just has lifted, and until I was looping and everything got so much better, I didn't really realize how bad it was before. But yeah, it's just completely changed my life. And I'm so grateful for Dawn, especially, for introducing me to it, and all the support I've had from all the guys. Oh, sorry.
Whenever Rachel and I first met, so it probably sounds like, yeah, Rachel's had a road to Damascus journey. She actually did, because I remember within a couple of weeks of meeting you in work, Rachel, at that point you were saying about using your pump, and you hated it and you would have left it at home when you were heading out for a night, and yeah, you replaced insulin on a night out. Facilitate things that you were normal things that you were doing, normal nights out. And I remember saying to you one time, have you thought about getting one of the freestyle Libras? And you looked at me and you're like, no, I'm not wearing one of those. And then whenever you did get one, and we were doing like, so whenever you work in a place and there's more than one of you with diabetes and you're using a Libra, everybody plays competitive blood glucose levels, and people in the room are like dying to know what their blood glucose levels are as well. And you're like, no, you're not using my finger pricker because I don't change my lancet every time. Thanks very much. That's another story. But Rachel and I would have been sitting, and it would have been like a reluctantly sharing numbers and reluctantly talking about diabetes on any level, with regard to how work would have affected us. Busy days and work play absolute havoc with your blood glucose levels. And whenever we had the wee chat in the big tent at the front of the hospital last summer, which is part of the COVID eating out measures, fresh air blowing through while we were spaced, socially distanced at a table, you just glowed in a way that I had never seen you glow before. And even though you said, no, that's not for me, I was like, she's going to do this. There's a door has opened here. And I just remember being so excited. And after you'd had your phone call back in November time, I actually cried whenever you sent me through the wee WhatsApp message. I was like, I can't believe this is so brilliant. And I was running around the house trying to tell anybody who would listen, did you hear what's happened for Rachel? And it was so flipping phenomenal. And there's so many comments come up here in the chat, Rachel, saying about how amazing you are, and you really, really are an absolute star and a legend. And I think if anybody had ever any worries or concerns about what it was going to do to their headspace, you've answered those so brilliantly.
Thanks, sorry, I'm so proud. Yeah. It doesn't, before any thoughts I had about diabetes, it was also negative, and I nearly didn't want to check my blood sugar because it was never what I wanted it to be, or if I did have a good one and then checked it again a couple of hours later and it was high, that it was all so negative, and that I found that just got on top of me, and I felt like I was stuck in this cycle that I couldn't get out of. And now even with the loop, you know, you're still diabetic, it still takes up so much of your thought process, but the loop just lifts so much of that pressure away. You know, I can go to bed with a blood sugar of 14, but I can know, right, the loop's going to sort this out for me. I don't need to sort of try and, not that I would have done it all that often, because my attitude was definitely ignore, but you know, if I was trying to get my bloods down, I'd have been trying to get up through the night and test and correct and all of that. Whereas now with the loop, I just know that that's going to be sorted out for me nearly. And you know, if I see the high blood sugars, I'm not scared of them anymore, because the high blood sugars are now like such a temporary part, whereas before, you know, 14 would have been my normal. And I remember texting you one day and being like, oh my God, my blood sugar's gone up to 14. And you were like, that's fine. And I was like, but it hasn't been 14 for about 2 weeks now. And you were like, that's amazing. And I was like, oh yeah, that used to be so normal and now it's so abnormal. And just the complete flip and everything is mental.
Yeah. Just get to keep you a wee bit longer as one of our legends.
Yeah.
We're going to blow that out of the water after this, though, because we're going for coconuts at Black Box. How well the loop copes with that. So, folks, like, thank you so much for staying with us for so long to this stage, and your wee comments and things in the chat box. We're going to take about 10 minutes now, so you can go and get a wee comfort break. You can go and get a cup of coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is this afternoon, because yeah, work away. And we will see you back here again at 3 o'clock. Is that okay?
Take away all the worry and work. Is that you finished with it? No, not back up. It's just Alison broke up there. Oh, that's good. I'm glad that I don't want to know how to do. I always want to fix 4.5 hours. I'll be at 9:08. Otherwise, it's going to be 9:37. I'm never going to be setting up. Right, Nikki. Hello, I'm trying to figure out the faces here. Hello? Hello?
Hi, I can hear you.
Is there sound?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
But you're not talking about right now.
No, no, they're on a break till 3 o'clock.
Okay, great, great. I thought I lost my audio.
No, they've gone for coffee.
So welcome back, everybody. I hope you managed to get like a wee cup of tea or something and you're feeling a wee bit fresher after that. And for the folk who have joined us late, you know that there is a recording that will be made available to you after today. So for anything that you have missed, you will be able to do a wee catch-up session. Unfortunately, your comments and stuff won't be part of that wee catch-up thing. So our next session, we are going to hand over to Neil Black, Paul McMullen and Shilpa Shah, or if Shilpa isn't with us, then Amy Dixon has joined us as well. So between the two of them, they'll probably coordinate themselves because they're big enough to sort themselves out over there and they know what they're at. While they're getting organised to speak, Alastair is going to give us another wee poll coming up on screen. And it's been really good seeing all your answers coming up each of the times as well, because it's helped us to answer some of the things that we would have as questions, concerns too, and we will come back to those formally. So hopefully the PowerPoint that kind of ran a wee bit sporadically there over the interval gave you a wee bit of information on how to get started, the where to find support resources and the information on support networks. And again, that will be included in the recording that you get, or if you send a wee email, we can forward it on to you. All right, so I think the how to get started and where to find resources seem to be the biggest questions that are coming back. Again, we'll there's some links have already been posted into the chat. We'll post some of those as well for you while we hand over now to Neil and to Paul and to Shilpa. Guys, I'm going to get you all just to introduce yourselves, and this bit of the session is basically handed over to you without any input from us unless you actually specifically call for it. So we'll work away.
Well, thanks very much, Dawn. Perhaps we'll introduce yourselves, and then I was going to say a few words and Paul's going to follow me, and then Shilpa, perhaps if she wanted to add anything. I'm Neil Black. I'm an adult diabetes physician in Alnagalvin in Derry, Londonderry, which is the polite way to say a complicated thing. I work in diabetes practice, including looking after people with type 1 diabetes, and I look after the insulin pump clinic in the northern part of the Western Trust. Shilpa.
Hi, thank you. I am a pediatrician and I work in Craigavon Hospital, and we have a wraparound service across the Southern Trust for our children and young people, which involve another consultant, a colleague of mine, Serinda Miller, and Paul works in the, I don't know, he's left us now or maybe not, in the young adult clinic. And we have, I have my nurse practitioner colleague with me, Amy Dixon. We have over 300 young children with type 1 diabetes, and about over 150 of them are on pumps. Some of them are using closed loop hybrid systems that are within the healthcare service. And we have 2 users of the DIY closed loop system. And Amy was going to give us a little bit of their experience, their challenges later on. I will now hand over to Paul and Amy to introduce themselves. Thank you.
I'll go first. I'm Paul McMullen, one of the diabetes consultants based in the South Asian Trust in the Ulster Hospital, with a main interest probably within type 1 diabetes. I mainly do the clinics here, including the pump clinics. I also do the South Asian Trust, as Silpa has just outlined there, in the Southern Trust, looking at the young adults. And I think it's a really important service that I'm keen to continue to develop with them. So based in the Ulster and also in the Southern Trust.
Hello, my name's Amy. So I am a diabetes nurse in the Southern Trust. So I work alongside Shilpa and Paul occasionally. So yes, I work with these children every day, and I also have type 1 diabetes myself. And I'm patiently waiting the day I get a pump. So I'm very excited for when that comes. But yeah, so that's my part in the team.
Thanks, Amy. So I was going to just give a couple of minutes introduction to what our limitations are, what our perceptions are, and then we're each going to add a little bit of something significant to that. First thing to say is a disclaimer: I do not live with type 1 diabetes. I'm not married to someone with type 1 diabetes, and I don't have any close relatives with type 1 diabetes. So this is purely from the outside looking in, if you like. The key factors are that what does looping require? It does require an insulin pump, and it requires some form of real-time glucose monitoring. So that's very different, obviously, from a finger prick blood glucose. And there are adaptations that you can make to the flash glucose monitoring to allow it to be real-time. So access to these things is one of the greatest limitations within the NHS. Obviously, we're a public funded system. But the availability of Freestyle Libre 1 and 2 now to a very large proportion of the population of people living with type 1 diabetes, both adults and children, have meant that it's opened the door. We vary in and around, I think, between several and 15% of people living with type 1 diabetes by trust area use an insulin pump. And some of that is there are different barriers to that, different limitations, reasons, and that could be staff related, it could be access to training, it could be awareness and lack of advocacy even. But the NICE criteria are what all of Northern Ireland are bound by with respect to insulin pumps, and that means that really technically the requirements are quite stringent for adults. Now, I'm only speaking for adults here, it's quite different for kids. But you would have to have an HbA1c over what the old currency at 0.5% or 70 millimoles per mole, or, which is the getaway clause here, unable to get down to the target that you need without disabling hypoglycemia. Now, disabling hypoglycemia is what it says it is, something that interferes with your daily life. Now, as far as healthcare professionals are concerned, and Paul and I in adult practice would be in a similar category here, in that you can apply quite a wide definition to this beyond what it technically says on paper. So what does insulin pump therapy do for those of you who don't use it? It is a constant infusion of a background low level of insulin, which you then can adjust to fit around your daily pattern. And you can adjust it according to your activity. You can different patterns, different profiles for different phases of the month, different work or non-work patterns. You can temporarily put it down and put it up when you're sick, but you need to be able to carb count, and you need to know a significant amount of technical information and require quite a bit of support to use this effectively to its maximum benefit. But there is no doubt to any of us who work in diabetes that insulin pump therapy can improve quality of life. It can reduce risk of highs and crises. It can reduce hypoglycemia. It can improve things enough that hypoglycemia unawareness improves. And we've all seen it change lives on its own without extra monitoring. And that was before any of the continuous monitoring was really readily available, or even flash glucose monitoring. So is insulin pump therapy good? Oh, absolutely. Do we see barriers to using it? Yes, that's staff related or criteria related, but there's a significant amount of gray area in how we can apply insulin pump therapy. The second item is monitoring, and the ready availability of Freestyle Libre across Northern Ireland and has been a dramatic reduction in that barrier. The flash glucose monitoring isn't continuously available and needs extra third-party software like Meow Meow that you've heard referred to make it viewable in real time. Actual continuous glucose monitoring, such as the Dexcom or Guardian, and there are other continuous glucose monitoring, is very limited in funding in Northern Ireland, and it's been very difficult for us to get access. But with that funding and access to insulin pumps, and with funding and access to Freestyle Libre, especially the keenly awaited Freestyle Libre 3, which will be more real time, or the continuous glucose monitoring, it actually is quite a small step to looping, because there are actually, I know we've been concentrating on open APS here, but there are 3 commercially available closed loop systems in the United Kingdom, and Dexcom 5 system, sorry, the Omnipod 5 system is hopefully going to be approved in the United States and become available in Europe and in the UK at some stage. So we're keenly awaited. Of those, if you like, my favorite would be the CAM APS system, because it has been developed in the UK. We trust people like Roman Hovorka, who works in Cambridge and has gone about this, if you like, technically the right way. He is the one who's brought it, if you like, it's a UK owned thing that is gathering its evidence actively as we speak. There are costs associated with it, and the NHS needs to bear that. Will it make a difference? Oh, absolutely. If you listen to anything that anyone has said before we started to talk today, you can understand that it would. The greatest barrier really technically then is NICE criteria for continuous subcutaneous insulin infusions or insulin pumps. Technically, so we're not funded for the commercial closed loops at the moment, and technically we can't advocate officially that is the open APS systems. However, we cannot argue with the value of it. And while we technically can't recommend the open APS, it's just because of lack of regulation and regulatory oversight. And there are European and UK bodies which officially recommend those. And until a technology is officially adopted by those and then adopted in Northern Ireland by our executive, officially we can't use them. However, it doesn't stop us helping people along the way. It doesn't stop us helping with the access to the technology which you need to go on ahead with open APS, and it definitely doesn't stop us being able to help support you. Now, you probably, as you investigate it and look into it, you're going to find that you know an awful lot more about it than the healthcare professionals that are talking to you, including me. There's no way that our level of knowledge into the technicalities of this can approach yours whenever you are actually using it, which tells us there's a shift in control and shift in power. And some of my colleagues are going to mention this. I wanted to close off what I'm saying after talking about the technicalities and some of the limitations and what we can do by saying specifically that we cannot fail but want to support you in living with this, because the benefits are tangible, immense, and they're highly relatable. it takes a lot of work to set up Open APS on your own. And it seems like this is a massive barrier. You've heard how it took one person, Dawn, to be with her colleague to help support her through it, suggest it to her, give her access, share the links, help guide her. You heard who the very person, Dawn, who said that she was helping Rachel to get access to this. Dawn actually did it and then pulled back from it, deleted everything, only to start again at a later stage. This is, yes, difficult. It's exacting. You need to work with it, be confident. And in fact, as someone works through some of the Open APS systems, there's something like 10 safety gates that you have to go through and guarantee before you can move to the next one. So these systems are set up in an unregulated way, but they're set up for safety. What I can say is that the way that we look after type 1 diabetes, the way that we tell you to look after it, produces gross distortions in life. Healthcare professionals break life for the person living with type 1 diabetes down into little bits: diet, glucose, insulin, and exercise. Living with type 1 day to day is about thinking and calculating. It's almost like you can't wake up in the morning without thinking about it. You can't eat without thinking about it. And there is a grossly, without even talking about eating disorders, there's a gross disturbance in the relationship to diet and physical activities. And that's everything from simple, a walk, a sunny day, a bath, cycling, anything at all. But there's a grossly distorted relationship with the very thing which keeps you alive, which is, of course, your diet. So what I've distilled from as I listened in the planning meetings to this, and as I listened today, and as I've put together everything of all the people living with type 1 diabetes I've ever talked to, I can see that looping is a demedicalizing thing. We ask people to take responsibility and ownership for their diabetes, as if the only thing that matters is that diabetes. And yet what we're seeing here is someone turn around and own it and take control, and to be able to sleep at night and feel no guilt or feel no insecurity and is just incredible. This goes right to the very fundamentals of who a person is. I think whenever you hear people talk about looping, that's a very quick, rapid run through a lot of things that I wanted to bring up to add to what has been already said. And perhaps I'll pass on to my colleagues now.
Okay, Neil, I just probably come in and just give you my own personal perspective in terms of when people with diabetes have come into clinic and gone through that, our initial start to their journey and discussing the potential for this. I guess it's really evident today with the powerful stories that we've heard that this is a growing and all healthcare professionals need to become more attuned to this. I guess the first impressions that I tend to see is fear, fear, and when people walk into the room in a bit of apprehension, and I guess that fear nearly transcends onto me, and I'm a bit fearful as what they're going to tell me, and then when they tell me that they're looping, there's, from my point of view, there's a lot of relief, and hopefully that transcends onto the person with diabetes, that there is also relief. I guess looping is what we've in the diabetes community always aim for, closed looping systems. And it's great that, you know, the open and DIY systems have really rapidly progressed, and hopefully the commercial aspects have also progressed much further through this community. After that initial first impressions, I guess what goes for me is how do I support this person on their journey with looping, but also what support is available to them. I think that is one of the key factors here, and really is evident today in terms of the online community, because technically these systems, the companies aren't able to support fully for certainly those DIY looping people. But they, you know, they do need online support, and there's a wealth of people out there, and Dawn, as you see, has been pivotal, and Mark and Rachel and Sarah and all those guys helping each other out, and also expanding to other people with diabetes. But the benefits of peer support is really evident. From a practical point of view, I need to sort of work out, do I need to change sets for that person? Are they still using their same pumps? Have they changed that? and working through all the practical aspects and how can I help them. We can't advocate obviously the DIY looping systems. However, we need to make sure that we support people with diabetes fully in whatever way we can. The reviews don't change. I still look at, you know, time and range, and obviously you've heard the stories of how much benefit there's been there, but also so much in the well-being, and that's very evident to me as a clinician, you know, in terms of the decrease in burden of diabetes through people that are currently looping. That is very evident. And I'm keen to learn. It's about me joining that person with diabetes on their journey to work out how I can help other people with diabetes. You know, how does this pump work? And that can be a wee bit of fear from a healthcare professional point of view. We don't maybe understand the logarithms fully. So we trying to work out the split between basal and bolus. I mean, we have to learn with that and how that suits individual people with diabetes and how we can use that information to help further people. And it is about getting that permission to join that journey with that person. And the shift in power can be from a healthcare professional to the patient, you know, taking the role, which is what we always want. We want the experts coming to educate us further so that we can help other people that may need that. The benefits, I guess that, you know, it's clear that there's huge amounts of benefits in terms of reducing the turbulence with living with this condition. You know, all the factors that, you know, are out of control, this certainly can help that ever so fine tuning from a day-to-day basis. And it's really important from a healthcare professional point of view that we increase the evidence behind this. So again, it's trying to ensure that we get support of the people with diabetes to be able to be part of things like the ABCD, DIY, APS audits, so that there will be this growing evidence base that, you know, healthcare professionals need to push these things to become more supported and more available for other people. And I guess finally, the last stage is just, you know, from my point of view, it's just improving my own personal confidence, you know, learning about these systems, learning about the language that we've seen, Loop, Android, APS, etc. And also looking at the different systems that are needed, RileyLink, roughly. So all of these different things I need to learn about so I can support that and also support the team. So again, events like this certainly do help. And I think it's about going in terms of a team to help manage or help support people as best we can that are living with diabetes that choose to loop, and those that choose not to loop also, and how we use information to benefit the whole population of people with diabetes. So that's probably just my own personal perspective. Happy to expand on that through any questions at any stage, and I'll hand over to Shilpa and Amy if they want to comment any further.
Thank you. So I suppose we are predominantly working with children and young people, 0 to 18, and then in the young adult clinic there's a transition, and then the 18 to 20s are also in the clinic, but sort of moving towards the sort of adult side of things. We're very protective about our young children and obviously the parents as well, and there's always constant dialogue between us and parents about what's best for them. We're also very, very fortunate that we do get access to starting them on CGMS technologies early, not necessarily Libra, but things like Dexcoms, because of their inherent low hypo-awareness, especially in the younger ones, 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. So we do have a lot of children who are already on pumps with CGMS, whether or not they are sort of chatting with each other in the closed loop hybrid form or not. But we do have children who are using the NHS commercially available, like the 780 Medtronic pump with its own hybrid closed loop. And then we have a few children on the T-Slim with the advanced control IQ feature. Apart from that, we have 2 young adolescents who are on the DIY closed loop systems that are, you know, they've done it themselves, and we've supported them through it, and we found that challenging at some places. And as Amy will highlight, now we've already presented them at a previous conference, so we have implied consent from them to actually share their journeys with you and their ups and their downs. Yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Amy.
Hello. Yes, I'm just going to talk real quickly about these 2 children. One's a young boy and one's a young girl, and they're both they're both using the same system, which makes it a bit easier for me to explain. So they're both using a Roche combo pump with Dexcom, and then their Android APS system, so their apps and things on their phones. I'll be the first to come out and say it baffles me, the technology, and I'm sure that's probably the biggest hurdle a lot of people have to deal with, and that's actually what both parents said. The biggest thing that stopped them from wanting to go forward with the DIY looping would have been they just literally were like, how on earth are we supposed to do this? One mum actually said, I couldn't even get my online banking to work. How was I supposed to write a program for my child's pump? Like, I think that's probably the technology barrier is one of the big things that a lot of parents, and not even just parents, just people who are wanting to loop themselves, they'll stop themselves and be like, oh, I don't think I can do that. Whereas a lot of people here today have shown that you don't have to have technology background, you don't have to understand the ins and outs of it, but there's a lot of very safe advice online to help you get to a place where you're able to loop. So both these families, I think, were hesitant at the start, but as the person living with diabetes that they were managing were their children, they often, obviously, within childhood and adolescence, you're growing, you have growth hormones, you have just hormones in general. And I don't know about the rest of the people in the room here who have lived with type 1 diabetes. The teen years are particularly difficult for all of that. I know rightly myself. So you're dealing with so many other external factors, school, just like Sunday night syndrome, really, waking up on a Monday and your blood's being high all Sunday night, something like that. So these parents were just, looking things up as parents do, and both came across the looping systems and just really honed in and jumped in and decided to run with it because they said we just wanted more freedom for our children. The young girl, it's fascinating just to talk to her mum. Her mum told me that they went on holidays and her young brother, after they'd started looping, and her brother went to her mum and said, is her diabetes machine working? Is it still working? It's not beeping. Is it working? And her mom said, yes, she's just in range. And that's just one of those things. And he was all concerned because he's like, oh, is she okay? But her mom was able to say she's completely fine. And this can become a more normal thing. No beeps and no alarms. But so it's just something that both families have said have just changed their lives. Both families have openly said they don't want to give up their DIY loops. And I know we have a lot of the commercial loops coming in, and we have a lot more patients on that than we would on the DIY looping, but both families have said that they wouldn't want to trade in the amount of control that they have as well. So obviously both systems are hugely beneficial and you have pros and cons for both, but both our patients, we saw a marked increase in their time in range because both are on Dexcom, so we can see the young girl, she went from 49% in range to 80% in range within a few months just being on the system. So the main point that the parents both love talking about that they would say is that it just completely changed their lives and made it so they could live a much more normal life.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I know that they've also had their ups and downs. They're very motivated, weren't they, in terms of keeping things on track. And one of the things the young girl told me was that, you know what, I still need to carb count, all right, but I know if I get it a little bit wrong, I'll be helped on by the system. So that was useful. And that's the same even in our the commercially available ones. It is important to do the basics right, so obviously not to entirely lose sense of reason and sense of, sensible things to do. It's not a ticket to do everything wrong, but it makes life so much more convenient. A machine can do a lot more calculations than we can, so we can live our lives. That's what they said, we can live our lives with the machine helping us in the background, as opposed to this whole technophobia and this whole sort of technology overload. So the balance was right for them. But there's been so many other families who say, no, this is not right for us. And their time in range is brilliant as well. Some of them who are using pens. and maybe a CGMS device. There are some people using finger pricks and pens, so it doesn't always have to fit for everybody. For those who are motivated and those who know that they can, access it, we would very happily support them. It's just that when one of the young boys pump went into a bit of a malfunction, and then to actually approach the Roche company was a little bit difficult, because they said, look, you're using it out of the licensed indications, so we can't actually extend warranties and things like that. So there were those little technicalities that I don't know much about, but on the whole, it's a journey for all of us. So yeah, thank you.
I think hopefully you get an impression that we are actually all supportive from our different perspectives, and that we may be somewhat of gatekeepers, however, and that is important, because the healthcare professional who doesn't know and isn't aware may find it very difficult to accept that you come in saying, I'm going to get this stuff that you know nothing about, that isn't regulated, and it's going to do it all for me. They're going to look at you with suspicion. So there was a question on the chat, Don, about what I do, at my next face-to-face appointment, when my team don't seem aware. And one of the answers I'd suggested was ask your team, are they submitting information to the ABCD? Not very hard to pick that one up. The ABCD DIY APS audit. So you can translate that into Association of British Clinical Diabetologists, do-it-yourself artificial pancreas system. Just ask for are they submitting the ABCD audit, and do they know anyone else who has it? But focus specifically on the two fundamental things that you need. The easiest one to get hold of is the Libre. Guidance just changed in England, and hopefully in Northern Ireland, to basically everybody with type 1 can get a Libre. So Libre is one of the easiest things to get. In terms of an insulin pump, carb counting skills will stand you in good stead on multiple daily injections, on an insulin pump, and on a loop as well. But I will say, a colleague sent me a message the other day, and I won't out them, who uses a looping system to say 45-gram pizza used to be my nemesis, and look at this. And honestly, it's the continuous glucose profile of someone who doesn't have diabetes. That is how good it looked. But that person was astounded as well, just as happy. I think I got more excited, and they were more controlled about it, saying, let's see. So Dawn, sorry, it's time for us to stop dominating the proceedings and let you bring us back online again, inline.
Thank you very much to all four of you for sharing your input here today. And I know that a lot of folk in the chat have been posting up. It's great knowing that the support is out there. I have to put a wee caveat onto that to say that these four are head and shoulders above a number of our folk in terms of their understanding and awareness of what's going on in the shadows. And as Neil has very kindly pointed out there and referenced, the Association of British Consultant Diabetologists actually have a number of documents as well. And I think there are folks starting to feed back from clinics here. Obviously, we all go to clinics across Northern Ireland in various hospitals. So hopefully what we're starting to bring to the table in terms of patient experience and user awareness of this will be fed back to the ABCD network. So if you Google it, it will come up. And they do have good support information as well. And basically they will outline in a bit more detail what your consultants or your team may, or as Neil and Paul and Shilpa and Amy have all said, cannot do for you. And just because you're interested doesn't always fast track you to the top of a pump waiting list, but we do all have access to Libre here. And one of the slides that was shown over the coffee break was the availability and access of Libre 1 and Libre 2 here in Northern Ireland. That'll be sent out as well as part of the wee recording afterwards. So thank you very much, guys, because I know you're all really busy and you've all been redeployed to different areas as well, and you're kind of trying to find your feet back in the world of diabetes again after the last 15 months and the unusual changes that we've been going through and the unusual changes that our entire country has been going through. I'm going to take a wee minute now just to show you a couple of slides. As we said at the very start, none of us today are receiving any funding for any of this, so it's all been done in our own time. Alastair is going to share a wee link again to the Just Given page, and this is the reason why we're going to the Just Given pages, because we've had a number of folk who we've come into contact with who don't have access to the same resources that we have access to. So hopefully you're going to be able to hear this, and hopefully it's going to be this one coming up first.
Hello, my name is Edith Mokantwari, and I am the co-founder of Africa Diabetes Alliance. The organization really started from my experience with type 1. I've had type 1 for 16 years now, and I struggled with it for the longest time. And I thought, back then I thought, you know what, no one cares about, type 1s. There's no organization helping us. And even the family that cares deeply about me couldn't help me because they didn't understand what I was going through. So I realized when I started finding the resources that I needed, I thought, I'm the only one struggling. So could you look for other people that are struggling and help them? So we did that, and we found a lot of people. We helped a lot of people, but it's been a challenge because, for several different reasons, mostly finances. But we've also come to realize that there are other people out there that need us to look for them, because they might also be in their situation and think, no one cares about us. No one is looking to help us. But we are here. We are looking to help people. We're looking to, find them where they are, because some of them can't even leave the situations that they're in. So we want to help them as much as we can. And finances would definitely help us move the mission forward. That would be very helpful. We want to empower type 1s. We want to give them skills. We want to give them diabetes education, help them improve their management. Even when type 1s have access to medication, a lot of the time the medication is a cause of struggle because they don't know how to use it. They're using it wrong. They're taking too much of it or too little of it. And, sometimes you just need the guidance to be able to understand how your body interacts with all these different things, medication, food, exercise, sickness, so that you can manage yourself very well. And once we're healthy, we're able and capable to do anything we set our minds to. The challenge is when you're not actually empowered, then you're going to struggle to even do something for yourself. So all your dreams, all the things you want to accomplish are set aside because of that. But we've noticed that with education, with empowerment, with skills, type 1s can go on to do amazing, amazing things. And you would help us really with our mission to reach out to people who are in really tough situations and help them out of them. Thank you for listening.
I've just got a message from Dawn there. Has that not come through? Dawn?
I don't know. I think I was maybe running the video as well. Are you doing the next video as well then, Alastair?
You're running?
I'm running it? Okay.
Tell me, was everybody able to see the videos there? Can I have a thumbs up from anybody?
It didn't show it continuously.
Okay, right. I was getting a feedback thing as well. Okay. We'll try this wee one now from Lucy. So I'll see if I can do that. Let's see.
Turning the chair and on.
Not there, Dawn.
Okay. Okay, Alastair, can I get you to share that then?
Want me to try? Okay, can you let me know if you see this?
Hi Dawn and Fred. I just
Okay,
wanted
thanks.
to say thank you for fundraising for.
Not showing, still showing in your file manager.
I am the president and founder of the Pansy Trust, which I set up after I travelled out to India back in 2011 and realised quite how terrible the situation is out there for those with type 1.
Not sharing, Alastair.
Okay, no idea.
If you go to share your window and you'll you'll have loads of options if your window's open.
Yeah, no, listen, I have done that. I mean, all I can say is basically we will share the links. All right, we'll find a way of doing that there. And I suppose this is a bit of the Bob Geldof approach to life. You know, so apart from turning you upside down, shaking you so the money comes out your pockets, you know, I mean, it's really good to be here, but we are dealing with first world diabetes situation here, and through Dawn, I've become involved with her in an African group, and there are kids out there that cost £5 a month for their insulin, and some of them just can't afford the £5 for that there. And one guy we're particularly connected with there in Nigeria, really diabetes for 6 years, and his eyesight is deteriorating. Whenever you ask him about testing, he says, I bought a packet of test strips in February and I might do one test a day. And there's no way of actually getting any control there, along with the mixed tard insulin using, et cetera, you know. So basically, I'm going to put a link in there, or actually Mark has just done it. I think we're up to about £200 at the minute. So if you can find it within yourselves to give a fiver or something to that, the money's just going to be split between African Diabetes Alliance and the Pansy Trust to do a lot of work, similar work in India. Thanks.
Thanks, Alastair. That's great. So there were a couple of questions that have come up in the chat, and we've tried to include links to some of the websites for you folk who haven't got started yet. You do have email addresses for some of us. I know that a number of you here either have WhatsApp numbers or you follow us on social media and places like that. So if there's anything that we can do to give you a wee hand along the way or to point you in the right direction, please, please, please don't hesitate to ask, because we've all had to ask, and we still, in our own wee WhatsApp group, I think we're up to about 38, 39 people now. We still keep asking questions and we still keep trying to get each other back on track whenever the wheels do fall off. And as was said earlier, the wheels will fall off. There'll be times whenever your insulin cannula decides to misbehave, or there'll be times whenever you get a wee kink in the tubing, or you'll be away for a weekend and you'll suddenly realise that because you haven't looked at your phone for 3 days, you're actually down your last 3 units of insulin before you get home. So there's always wee things that will happen, wee technical issues that will happen along the way. And certainly it's been lovely having the opportunity to share our stories and our experiences with you all here today, and giving you a chance to find out what it means to us and why it means so much. And the biggest thing I think that we all feel, and very much in the light of what Alastair just said, we know that we are incredibly fortunate, first of all, to have the NHS as a funded healthcare system. And we've been incredibly fortunate to have access to free insulin from the point of diagnosis and ways of administering that insulin from the point of diagnosis. We've had pumps, and some of us have various pumps for anything between 18 months and anything between up to 9 or 10 years, just that the wee crowd who represented today. And we've also all now got access to glucose technologies. And for all the problems that go with Freestyle Libre or with Dexcom, as Alastair's pointed out, we can still fall back on finger prick tests, and it doesn't cost us or our long-term health any issues. We've just been able to be fortunate enough to join up the dots and pull it all together, and that's kind of why we were hoping that you would feel welcome and feel enabled to maybe help support the folk out in India and out in Africa. It's very humbling when you're waking up in the morning, there's 128 messages in your WhatsApp phone from one particular group, and it's people that are having real issues and real struggles with managing to live with diabetes in a way that for most of us, we have no idea really what it's like outside of the very safe environment we're in. I'm going to do one very final screen share. If there's anybody who's been presenting or participating today who wants to say anything before we go, or any of the folk from the WhatsApp group who want to share something, please do.
Can I add a little bit, Dawn? It's just Mary. Yeah, somebody put in the questions about schools, and I can't remember who it was actually. I'm sorry if I should have written your name down. But yeah, like the whole thing about schools, it goes back with confidence. It was too long a thing to write down, but it goes back with confidence. And my whole journey into looping, I built up my confidence, and the things that I would have questioned about looping and DIY apps was, is it safe? How does it work? What am I able to do it? And from learning those, I was able to articulate how safe it was. Like you heard Keith describe his fear first about Sarah going into it, and then being amazed at how safe it is. It is safer than manual, and now the training was done by our DSNs for all the normal diabetes stuff. And I just supported it with a small part of Loop. And basically with Loop, it allows for remote monitoring. And it also actually, it allows for remote overrides, temporary remote overrides. So I can make a slight change during the day from here, and it enables like sleepovers and things much easier. But schools are, it just depends on your confidence, and if you act less confident, then they won't trust that you know what you're doing, so they need to go to rule. But when you set yourself up, you are already like in that position mentally to say, this is what we need, this is what you do, this is the bit I can help with from home, from work, all those things. And these are my, like, it just makes you more in control of the things that can't be controlled. So that basically is fine with school, and that's what I wanted to say. And the biggest thing for us as parents, and I'll finish with this, is that as somebody with type 1, my biggest fear is handing over my diabetes to somebody else. And I would only feel that if I was going for surgery and I have to hand over my diabetes to a sliding scale, or I have to ask if my pump can be connected if I'm just manually pumping. I have to beg if I'm looping. But as parents, we have to do that every single day. And it's the anxiety involved in that, and Loop really helps with that. It really does. Like I'm actually a human being now, and though I'm grey, but yeah, so like looping and school is incredible. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much, Mary, for sharing that. And so I'm just watching Alastair's posting things up in the chat there as well, trying to keep up with everybody. So I'm going to share the videos. I can do that actually, I've just discovered, from my phone onto my Twitter feed. So if anybody follows me up on Twitter, or if you're on Twitter, if you go to @moodwife, you'll find me there. So I'm just going to post those for anybody who's here today who wants to see and find out a wee bit more about the different charities that we are supporting. So just thank you also very much for coming along today. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege to be able to share our stories with you, and to have the backing and support of some of our local clinicians. If you want to unmute yourself at any point now and just put your hand up, you can ask a couple of questions, work away, because we've got a few minutes still left before we were scheduled to finish. Thank you. Or if any of you clinicians want to say anything.
It's always good to hear back what people think. I mean, you put up the quote in the break about 0.02% of a person living with diabetes year is with those stiffs in the clinic, and who think they know everything about you and what's important to you, and yet are the gateway to what you need. So to actually hear a very proactive group talk openly about what their impact on in their lives can only reinforce what we think and do. You know, we go back even stronger. Like, we're resetting COVID services now, and I was thinking this morning, thinking, oh, I know exactly what effect this is going to have on me, and I'm going to go back and think the pumps and CGM and flash glucose monitor are the most important thing in the whole world. I sent something to Paul on Friday that he maybe has or hasn't seen yet about the change in the guidance. This is reinforcing. There's no doubt about it. And we will go back to our colleagues and we will talk about it, and we'll make available resources, share them with our teams. So talk to the people that are helping you with your diabetes and are your gateway.
I was also going to add, just it's okay to do all these things in small steps. You don't have to go full hog straight away. You can convert your flash glucose monitor to a continuous glucose monitor to get a stream of data, and then you can, if you go onto a loop system, you can open loop for as long as you want, so that you don't hand over any control. The system at the start will start making suggestions to you, and you can choose to implement those or not. And then it's only after you're really comfortable with the system where you begin to hand over control to an extent. So it's small steps make the journey so much easier.
Totally, Mark. From a parent's perspective too, it's hugely important, because you can't feel that in your own body, and being able to hand over that small bit, to see it first in simulator mode, then to have it open loop where it recommends something, like you're between meals and it's saying to take 0.1 of a unit of insulin, and you okay it, like on our loop, you can see how it works, and then to go to closed loop where it just does it. Like, you have that time to trust it, don't you? Like, and you build that up. And that was what I didn't go to simulator later. I can't even say simulator. Yeah, simulator mode first. I open looped, and if I'd gone to simulator mode much earlier, I could have done it and started much earlier and understood it and got more confident from just seeing how it worked and imagining and reading on a website, just seeing pictures that I'm not au fait with, but seeing it in simulator mode, it's all step by step, and then onto open loop. It was really good.
I just wanted to add as well, I'd seen a question earlier about how the clinicians respond whenever you go in and tell them you set up looping. And I'm very lucky, Paul's my consultant and he was great. So I was really nervous about going in and saying, you know, I've done this, but you know, he was really supportive, and it was very much you know, how help me understand so I can make sure this is safe for you. And it wasn't, you know, I thought I was going to go in and get told off and everything else, and it was really, really supportive. So, you know, if you're thinking about it and that's putting you off, don't let it, because, you know, they are just there to help you. That, you know, they want you to have the control and to be able to see the benefits, and, you know, so just don't let that be a factor in what's worrying you either.
I found huge benefit from being part of the sort of online WhatsApp community, whatever, for about 6 months before I actually started to loop. availability to technology was a bit of an issue for me, but I got there in the end. But it was just so it was just so brilliant, like seeing people's graphs, and they were never perfect, but you know, it was somebody who'd like eaten an entire Chinese takeaway and like their blood sugar come down an hour later. Just things that you didn't think were possible were becoming possible. So just kind of like sitting back and looking at that can be really, really, really useful before kind of jumping into the technology and stuff, because that'll make anything that might be a bit of an issue or a bit tricky easier to work with, because it's okay. And then one day you're the person sharing that line.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing like more improvements as Johnny is starting to go through puberty. Johnny is 11, and it's becoming more difficult to have to keep making changes. And like our loop is maybe as flexible as a commercial system, where Android apps is more flexible. But if I was manually pumping with Johnny, I would be up an awful lot at night time, and then it would stop. And whereas Loop is really helping us in the grey areas of insulin resistance and changeable insulin resistance, and being in our online community, it is like Sarah says, it's really nice that it's real and it's not perfect, but we're all making improvements as well, and all seeing it's motivating, isn't it, Sarah? Like just you get on with your life and then you can do another thing. And you're like, oh, are you doing that? Oh, I'll try that. It just is, yeah. And it helps, definitely helps me too. But like when you've type 1 and your child has type 1, you get forgotten a little bit about, and the WhatsApp group is so good for me. Like any other parent probably, or anybody else who's busy, or anybody else trying to do other things, your diabetes is always second, because you are first. And but you can't forget about it, because when you forget about it, when it is first, it becomes a difficult thing. Yeah, so our WhatsApp group's great.
And there's no secret password to get in. You just have to know Dawn.
Yeah, or any of the group, that's all. Yeah. Yeah, we're always actually, well, I think every time we've been like incredibly willing to help out and support and share the ice cream love and share the pizza love. Yeah, yeah, don't come to us for diet recommendations, okay? Because we're not that sort of a WhatsApp group.
Dawn, can I say just something? It's Shiv here. I'm traveling and I'm a bit all over the place, but I just want to say from the Republic, I am so grateful to all of you for helping me get set up. We have different system here. Maybe most of us operate with G6s instead of the Libra, but only for ye, I don't know where I'd be the last 9-10 months. So thanks a million. I'm a bit like Rachel now. I'm going to sign off.
Oh, Shiv, you're a legend. So yeah, and yeah, just in case anybody is from outside of Northern Ireland, the occupied six counties, Ulster, whatever your preferred term for it is, you know, we'll have different ways of looking at it. The group is open to folk. We have members in all 6 counties. We have folk from across the 32 counties. We have folk from England, Wales, Scotland, Canada, and America as well, I believe. So yeah, we're starting to go a wee bit global. And I know it sounds like it's only about 36 or 38 of us, but yeah, we've had a wee bit more of a reach than any of us ever anticipated. And I have one final thank you to say as well, because I completely forgot about this to start. A big thanks to Mark Breen, because Mark provided 4 of us with the identical backgrounds, which he stitched together from a page he found on the internet. So if anybody actually owns the page on the internet, if you see Mark Breen, he's the one you want to have the issues with financially to get reimbursement for that, because he just said, yeah, we could use it. So we did. I've one final wee PowerPoint for you as well. It just has some links to some additional resources. So if you're happy enough, I'll share this with you now. And I keep forgetting where the share screen button is. I'm so used to Teams and Zoom and stuff at the minute that I'm absolute handling whenever it comes to these things. So I'll put this up and hopefully this is going to work. Give me a wee second because I haven't quite done it right, and I've had a couple of wee tech issues here myself today, as you're probably aware. So
how do you handle the loop then, Dawn?
That's another story altogether. If it wasn't for the wee team in the background, I'd be handling. I'd be dead. But sure, you know that anyway. Okay, so hopefully you're going to be able to see this. So I'll leave it up long enough that you can either do a wee screen grab or a wee screen photograph with your mobile or whatever. It'll just give you some more resources and some more information so that you can go and have a look yourself. And they're all things that we've been talking about. There've been slides from some of the people who have authored these websites or these have been involved in the development of these websites too. So, you know, some of them are a wee bit longer than others. The Diabetic website is hosted by Tim Street, who's also on Twitter, and it's incredibly good for being able to find out some of the more practical stuff and more practical issues with regard to lupin. And it's where an awful lot of us have gone to for additional support. And this is the, were you able to, did that screen change for you there? I hope it did.
Yep.
Good. So these are where you'll find the documents to get you started. Somebody had asked earlier about, did you need an Apple phone? I hope the slide I put up during the coffee break showing all of our different setups. I think out of our group, there's probably about 17 or 18 variations on the theme of Android APS, Open APS, and DIY pancreas systems, showing the configurations that we all have. So no, you don't need an iPhone or Android, but it depends on the system that you're wanting to build and what you're wanting to do. As you saw, the majority of us are using Android APS, which runs on an Android phone, but can also bizarrely run on an iPhone, I believe, because some folk are using the Android APS software on an iPhone. And I don't quite understand how that works, because obviously I keep deleting the objectives that I've completed that are the gateway things for getting to setting up your lupin. So yeah, don't ask me technical questions. I'm not that good. And finally, just a massive thank you all to everybody who's joined us today, and particularly those who have shared their stories and shared their experiences. And yeah, Rachel and I are going off to Black Box Donuts now to get fed because she deserves it. It's my treat, Rachel.
Thanks so much, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn. Yep.
Guys, stop it.
Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, everyone. Lifesaver.
No. Thanks all you guys, and just yeah, keep in touch. And videos are now going up on Twitter, so hopefully whatever didn't work here, you'll be able to access there. You're free to go whenever you want.
Okay, I'm going to go. All right, listen, thank you. And Dawn, you can start planning now for, you know, your third annual Dawn
for party. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Fun times.
But I mean, that's great. I mean, 740 quid, you know, that's so good. So
That is phenomenal.
I mean, Edith will be blown away with that. So
Yeah, I know I think both she and Lucy will be delighted that there's a definite positive coming back from all of this. And if you are watching the videos, any of you guys on Twitter, really sorry, because I had to edit Edith's video down because it wouldn't share it directly from the phone because it was too long. Apparently Twitter has a wee limit of 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and it was a 2-minute 42-second video, so dear knows how it ends up. But it is what it is. Thanks, lads. Love yous all.
all right, okay. Bye, everybody.
Here, enjoy the donuts. Rachel can't join you, but we'll be warming up for like 6 o'clock.
It would be worth it to come.
It's like screw my parents. Who needs to see them? Let's go for donuts.
They know what you look like. You know what they look like.
Like seeing me sure these days.
Which one we're heading to then, Rich? Newcastle or Belfast? Where do you want to go?
Probably Newcastle, is it?
Yeah. It'd be handier. Oh, like